You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now.
Hey everybody, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of getting caught up with our friend, our staff member, mi hermano del bajo, Kilian Duarte.
Hey Raul, it's always awesome.
It seems like time flies when you're having fun. I'm going to say it was in the last few years at least. You've had so much stuff going on. Kind of bring us up to date. What are you up to?
Luckily, I've been maintaining a very busy schedule, which I'm super grateful and fortunate for. On top of continuing to work with Scale the Summit and to continue to work with various different artists, I've started new projects as well, one of them being this group called My Messes, which is prog, but with female-fronted vocals, that we're going to be releasing our new LP coming later this spring. Laddermath is just finishing up a record. Scale Summit as well is finishing up a record as well. And so a lot of really exciting stuff for original music. And then also just have been working a lot, doing general business type bass playing. But, that makes me very happy as well because it takes a while to network and to get these types of things underway and everything like that. So I've been doing a lot more theater work and those types of gigs as well. And then looking forward to a lot of touring in 2019. I already know about a run from March to April that I'm going to be announcing later this month, doing a big festival in Mexico City with Scale Summit in March. And then just in general, doing a lot of session work and getting ready to do a big album release cycle. Yeah, it's been very exciting. And I'm actually really grateful that these opportunities are coming my way after all these years and getting ready to see more of the world with my bass, which is what we all strive to do or at least hope to do. So I'm very happy.
Now, speaking of your bass, of course, you're hugging it like a little dear baby there.
So this is actually a loaner bass I have right now, but this is the new model from Kiesel. Since I've joined Kiesel, basses and guitars, they've basically treated me nicer than I could have ever imagined in a million years. And because I have a very reciprocal relationship with them, I do video demos, I'll always post for them. They use me as the guinea pig and spokesperson for their new basses, of which I do not complain in any capacity. It's quite awesome. So this is actually the main flagship bass of this model that they're launching, which is the Zeus multi-scale. So last year at NAMM, and you guys did a thing, I had a little 4-string that Jeff was nice enough to make for me. Mm-hmm. This is the 5-string iteration in a multi-scale format for the company. And it's their first headless design at a multi-scale. So this one in particular is not my bass, but it is the one that they gave, one of the ones they gave for the product demo. I decided to feature it because this is like the standard option, with pickups, with these types of pickups and everything like that. But they're absolutely incredible. Again, this year they've been doing a lot of expansion with bass products. This model in particular comes in a 4, 5, 6, and 7-string variation.
Wow.
Yeah. So the 5 is obviously going to be their biggest sellers in product industry. 5-string basses are the biggest sellers. Yeah, this has been amazing. I used it for the demo and I really loved it. I've been a big fan now of utilizing headless instruments for a lot of reasons. The first being no neck dive. So if I'm playing like this, my hands are here, up it, and then it's just there. And if I stand up, the neck stays at that angle. So there's not like monstrous neck dive like on other ones. Another reason I like it is for theater work. A lot of times it doesn't matter even if you're in a nice theater, like a theater with, budget and all this stuff. Usually the pit is consolidated to minimal space as possible. And actually even sometimes when you have even a bigger budget theater, sometimes you have less space because you have more musicians crammed into the pit, like when you have a full orchestra, everything like that. These have been a godsend in the sense that I have my personal space actually is consolidated, and I've noticed it sometimes because I'll have the guitar player or a ride cymbal or a horn player to my left, and it's just been fantastic. And then the third reason being is that with traveling and flying, I mean, if you've seen all the horror stories, especially on an electric instrument, acoustic instrument, there's many more variables, but on an electric instrument, the headstock right there, the joint between the headstock and the neck is the weakest point of any instrument. Doesn't matter how well designed it is. So there's a lot of peace of mind that comes with having a headless instrument in that regard, because for the neck to break on this, it just has one less weak point, and because it is more consolidated, I feel like I have much more peace of mind while flying. And for working professionals, that's like always a thing. And I've been fortunate enough that I have one of those big N key cases that I'm going to be utilizing this year, and then I have an SKB single flyer. I know that those have never failed me, and I've flown with my big multi-scale headstock basses. But it's just one more thing that I can give it to the person in the airport, and my brain isn't going to be like, oh no.
Yeah.
I've seen people, they'll go, because I've had it happen where I had a gig bag and they're like, no, I'm going to beat the system, man. They're not going to make me check it. And at the end of the day, if they want to make you check it, they will. And then all of a sudden you see your baby in the gig bag getting put in the belly of the airplane. And then you're just like, it's up to the gods now. Yeah. You're going to see it in one piece. So that's another thing. Oh, let me show you guys. So this is the prototype. Same model, but this one was built for me.
Okay.
This is my bass. So what it is, it's a 35 on the low B, which is nice because for those people that like the extra scaling for down tuning, or that they just feel it gives a little bit more tuning stability and like correct tension to the B string, it's there. And then this is nice. It's a 33.5 on the high C. So it's slightly shorter scale on the high string. So it's not just a fan fret where a lot of them, it's a standard scale on the high strings and then much lower. This one actually can give you a shorter scale for the high strings, which is really nice. This one I had equipped with double Music Man humbuckers, Music Man style. Obviously, they're not proprietary. And the reason why I chose this particular pickup configuration is that for high gain settings, which a lot of my bigger bands are, Scale the Summit has progressive metal elements, and Abiotic, my death metal band that I tour with, obviously I'm running high gain. This is really focused, and I find this pickup configuration is really good for string articulation in a high gain setting. This one's amazing.
Now, with that pickup configuration, I had a chance to play around with the Music Man Stingray that we gave away last year. And you had the ability to kind of switch how you wanted the pickups to be picking up. So you could be in one position of the lever, you were all bridge pickup. At the other extreme of the lever, you're all neck pickup. And then in between, varieties of either both pickups full bore or part of one, the outsides of the two, or does this have the capacity to do that adjustment as well?
I chose this one particularly just to have a blend knob. So, obviously like bridge, blend, and then neck. Just because for me personally, like it's usually what I end up doing. And don't get me wrong, I've seen a lot of those series or parallel type pickup options. But for me, I just found that realistically, this was going to be more what I was using. So might as well just simplify something. I think it's an option 50, which option 50 is something that it's not a standard option, but they can do it for you for a small upcharge. So I believe it can be done. The other thing that I love about the Kiesel bass is that the preamp is extremely well voiced. The frequencies that the treble and the bass are boosted to, there's some companies that just, especially with the treble pot, you start putting the treble and it just gets into this ice pick 4K range that really has no realistic professional application. It's almost excessive and it gets really tinny. I find that it's very voiced really well, and even when you're pushing the preamp to any specific frequency or boosting it, that it never becomes unmusical, or it has no frequency that I can't realistically find myself actually using. Because even when the mids are boosted, it doesn't become super honky. It just becomes very articulate, and the treble just has cut, but not ice pick. And then the bass never just becomes mud. It's just very beefy.
Nice.
Which is very nice. And then this one also too, which is kind of cool. I keep it active, but as an option, it does have a pull, push, passive option, active option, and that's kind of, my jam.
Nice. And what else have you got going on for gear? I know you've been working with other new stuff.
Yeah. So I finally started assembling like a proper final pedal board that I was going to be utilizing live, because I ended up just having to use specific pedals for specific things. And, not just for original progressive rock stuff. I'm talking about like I'd get a wedding gig and then I'd need an octaver and an overdrive just for like the regular, and I'm not talking about metal, but just a little bit of cut, and then the octaver for like all those like DJ pop tunes or whatever. And then obviously for my prog stuff, the overdrive was essential, compression, all that stuff. So my signal chain right now, it's very simple though. It's obviously a Polytune tuner, then followed by a dark glass supersymmetry compressor, which I use sparingly. I enjoy compression, but I'm not like a compression junkie. Like there's certain people that love very highly compressed signals, and to each their own, you know, like your sound is your sound. For me, I usually keep it only a quarter of the way up, just kind of to even things out, especially for like tapping things. I find that does help a little bit, just to have a little bit just to even things out. And then next in the chain is my new favorite gadget, which is the Dark Glass Electronics X7, which is their new overdrive pedal. And that one I'm just over the moon with because it's given me a lot of real estate professionally in terms of utilizing it for session work. Because the low and the high pass filters, like every engineer I've given to when they're recording me, they're like, oh man, this thing's so much fun. And they also are like, oh, I'm so glad I can separate the high and low frequencies for overdrive and stuff like that. So it's essentially like a mini bi-amp pedal, essentially. So you can keep just the lows completely clean and then overdrive the highs in a sense, and you just get a lot more control over the signal path of the overdrive and everything. And it also comes with a low-end compression knob on it, which that one, when I'm playing the really heavy stuff, like Abiotic is a death metal band, I love that specific compression knob kind of cranked for that specific scenario. And so that one's been fantastic. And then even as a, you know, I usually send for clients, I send a wet and a dry signal when I'm using overdrive. Mm-hmm. But just as a straight DI box, it's been absolutely fantastic because I hear just the clean signal as a DI box. And everyone's like, oh man, this is super, just great DI bass, just as is. And then when I give the overdrive, I give them the and or. A lot of times they usually don't reamp it themselves. They're like, oh, never mind, you dialed in a good sound. And so that's kind of nice, you know, it's less work for the client. And it's also kind of cool because unless you be creative and dial in a tone you think is appropriate, but it gives the client an option to take something that you're offering or to get their own twist on it. But the X7 is most of the time being like, oh, no, you're good. Followed that, I have a Electro Harmonics Canyon delay, which is an absolutely wonderful little pedal. Just a lot of versatility and a lot of, not just for conventional, but the reverse delay is very usable. Has a tap tempo. There's this really pretty shimmer delay where it's obviously like an octave higher shimmer effect on top of it. But none of it's hokey. None of it seems like one of those like, ooh, it's an effects pedal, but like, you know, you're like, there's no professional application for this. It's too hokey and the sounds are very artificial and, you know, cheesy. None of that with that pedal, and it's very nice. It's small, so it has a very small footprint on my pedal board, and I love that. And then I have a MXR bass optic, the little blue sub pedal, and I usually keep that with the mid-range boost on there. I alternate between keeping the overdrive first and the octaver, switch them out. A lot of times I end up putting the overdrive second because just to make the octaver like kind of clear for certain things. But I find that a lot of times I'm not using the octaver and the overdrive at the same time. So sometimes I keep the X7 before that in the signal chain, and then I just use the octaver, you know, like especially for like the wedding stuff, like I'm not going to be necessarily overdriving the octaver. So it's just that nice DJ kind of womp womp. Yeah, no, it's been really good. And then something that I'm starting to utilize now that I was very lucky that someone sent me was from Eris Effects, and it's just a clean boost. Very simple design from Richard Seiditz, I believe is his last name, from Canada. Mm-hmm. It's called Eris Effects, and I think it's called the Primo Boost. I forget what the name is. It's in the mail right now, but I'm going to actually utilize it. The thing was, when I was with Scale the Summit, I had a solo section in the song, and I just needed something just to make it cut. But the only problem was at the time I didn't have, just on the tour, my bad planning, all I had was my guitar tech. He had a guitar overdrive kind of thing. And it was actually worked. And, you know, it thinned out the signal a little bit, but it worked to just boost, more gain. Yeah. That section. But this is just a clean boost. And I'm going to be adding that to the end just for solo sections and stuff like that and leads. Yeah, for most of the stuff that I'm utilizing professionally, that's going to be pretty much what I use. I don't use a lot of effects really that much anymore. But yeah, I am a big fan of reverbs and delays and stuff like that, but more for textural things. Oh, one thing I did want to show you. This is kind of a semi-present from my guitarist that I've been using for fretless tracking. And actually, we've been utilizing this with my engineers instead of just using plugins. It's this Seymour Duncan Silver Lake pedal. And just with the fretless bass, I found that it has been just wonderful, very cavernous, but like, I don't know, everything works. Again, another pedal where nothing seems hokey or artificial. It seems really appropriate for the scenarios that I'm utilizing it. So a lot of fretless actually work that I've been expanding upon, both for Scale to Summit and for Abiotic. And I actually did an EP for my good friend and guitarist Dave Dunsire, and he had these beautiful piano lush sections, with a grand. He actually had his friend, do these very beautiful grand piano sections in this progressive rock piece with, very lush parts. And I didn't feel that DI'd electric bass, fretted bass was really appropriate. So I just put everything an octave higher, put fretless in there, did nice low glissando, tasteful fills and stuff like that, and ended up working really well. So I've been playing fretless since I was 14, but the applications for it aren't as prevalent as you would want sometimes. So I've been happy that people be like, "Oh, can you use a fretless on that?" And I'm always like, "Yes, absolutely."
Well, and all of these involve strings and cables. What are you getting your sound with there?
Yeah, definitely. I've been a GHS string endorsee now for the past year and a half. These are the progressive sets. So they are essentially an alloy string. Now, obviously, for those people who know stuff, there is no such thing as a pure nickel or pure stainless steel string. It's the molecular level, some of them are too weak or too brittle or whatever. They're all alloys, I get that. But this one's a nice balance. The percentages of everything, I believe, between nickel and stainless steel and another metal and how they're balanced and ratioed. And it's nice because they're both bright, but they're not harsh. And the tension is really nice. One of the things I like about GHS is the cores they use for the string. I don't know, they know how to make the core of the string very well, so the tension is perfect. For my 36-inch scale fan for it, I have a much heavier low B on there. But I don't feel like I'm fighting a telephone wire. I feel that it's still malleable. Mm-hmm. It still has enough tension where I can, feel like dig in, but very comfortable. And I don't feel like I'm fighting the string in any way, but I can push it a little bit. And then for this bass in particular, I have 30 to 131 on here. And then for my Vaders and the shorter scale basses, for the 34-inch scale basses, I have 30 to 125. All progressives across the board. And then for any variants on like the multi-scale thing, so I have a jazz bass there. All those are going to be 40, 42. It's really nice. They have mixed scale lengths. So they're not static. Gotcha. They have and so somewhere between the 40s to 130 for all of them for the low Bs for my 5 strings. And that's been nice.
Well, and I would add, when we talk about metal purity, I think a lot of people seem to think the only place that it really has any big value is in jewelry, because you want to blend metals to get the best characteristics for each one, but there isn't one single metal that has everything that you want it to have. And so, even with pure gold, it's too soft to use it for certain things, so you have to have other things blended in. So a good alloy, figuring out the right proportions is critical when you come down to the science to get the best result. And purity is not a desirable characteristic necessarily.
Precisely. So it's just one of those little things that people don't think about. But yeah, but the progressives have a high, they really are a mixture of a lot of these in a very nice way. I like the clarity of them, and then I think the biggest thing for me is that when they start dying, they don't die harshly. Some strings die an unnoble death, meaning they're super bright and then they just, and all of a sudden they sound like plastic, which that's my least favorite sound in the world, is a dead string that sounds it literally sounds like plastic. It has this horrible little rubbery, but not rubbery in the Beatles way. I mean, rubbery is in I don't know, bad gristle on a I don't know how to describe it, but these just get warmer. And even I change my strings more often, but even I've had a set that were super dead and they were still fine. I mean, the only thing that I wouldn't do with them would be like a high gain pick style or, a session work with them. But like the slap tone was still fine for live scenarios. I didn't feel like I was, slapping something that was unusable. And the warmness was nice, but it didn't also sound woolly. So it still had all the clarity. It just slightly lost some high end. But these strings die a noble death. And also they last a decently long time, because anyone who watches me play knows that I beat the crap out of my strings. So
gotcha.
I'm not one of those guys that just goes like, boop, 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 boop. I mean, the gig calls for it. Like at theater gigs, I'm not beating the crap out of my strings, but for my prog stuff, I'm absolutely savage to them, and especially with sweat and all that stuff and lights. It's nice to know that I don't have a string that I have to change every time, especially on tour, because I don't want to fly with 5 cases of string.
Sure.
So when I was doing double headers on the last tour I did, which is a big tour that I did a double headlining set, I was able to go 6 gigs without changing strings. But that's good for like a headlining set in rock lights, sweating. A lot of the bigger bands, they have their techs switch it out every day. Now I don't have, but I don't need to worry about that. And I don't feel like this, what I call the next day syndrome with strings, where you sweat and you beat the crap out of them, and then you notice that they absolutely did die a bit. Even though they're still good, you notice audibly that the strings died because of you rocking out on them. And the GHS don't have that problem, at least I haven't encountered it.
And you were going to mention cables.
Oh, yeah, sorry, because you asked before. So I just use Tsunami cables. I have, I think, a couple 15-footers and then a couple of 10s that I've been utilizing, which they're nice. Some of these have been on my 6th, 7th tour with me. No tears, no real problems. I've only had one kind of get stolen, but that's not the fault of Tsunami. So, and then, but this is the speak-on cable I use for all my speakers, which is very nice.
Sweet.
For my amps. And so, so they do all this stuff and my instrument cables, and they rock.
Well, and moving away quickly, again, you'd mentioned you've got a lot of things coming up, but in the very near future, you're going to be at the Winter NAMM show in Anaheim.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun this year. One of my bands, Abiotic, was a Metal Blade Records band, and they just had to disband over some internal issues, but they were substantially ahead. They were doing, European tours with bands like Suffocation, stuff like that, so they were very well established. But luckily, because the band leader kind of reformed it in time, we've got some really good hype for this record coming up. So me and our guitar player, John, are going to be demoing some tunes from their classic hit record or whatever, the self-titled record that they had at the Neural DSP Dark Glass booth. So it's Neural DSP, but basically it's Douglas is the owner and CEO of both, and they interchange technologies and everything like that. So we're going to be doing 2 tunes Friday at 11:30. And then on Saturday at 2:30, it's going to be really fun. I'm playing with my really good friend for many years, Sarah Longfield. We're finally playing together, which is nice because we've been on 3 tours together. She dates my guitar player. We're really close friends, or at least we have been through tours, and we never had an opportunity to play together. And then when she received a compression pedal from Dark Glass, the new Hyperluminal, and then my artist rep was like, do you think Sarah would be interested in playing? And then she goes like, yeah, do you want to do it together? And it was pretty nice. So we're going to be doing a lot of 2 tunes off of her record, previous release, Collapse Expand, which is really nice. And if anyone who's not familiar with her solo music and just listens to her YouTube stuff, it's basically like if Imogen Heap played an 8-string guitar. So very cool soundscapes and stuff like that. Very non-generic music, very original. So that's going to be fun. And then I am going to be doing, to be announced, I haven't gotten the exact times yet, with Kiesel. I'm going to be doing some solo bass stuff. So, doing a loop pedal thing, kind of doing some nice tasteful playing and, some flashy stuff, but mostly doing my own thing there. And then same Saturday, 5:30 at GHS.
Okay.
I'm doing that, and that'll be fun because I love those guys. And Jonathan Moody, hi John. He's the best. He's one of my favorites. Yeah, I'm going to be doing a solo set there and talking a little bit about bass. And then maybe some other ones. I'm not sure yet. That's still a little bit in the air.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing for now.
What I will mention is the performance situation for those that have not been to Winter NAMM. always has some flexible response going on. And so the truth changes. Performers get bumped up because somebody didn't show up, or they get pushed back because somebody did show up, or the truth changes. So nothing is etched in stone, but we'll keep our eyes out to see you at the show. I can't let you go without asking about the Corgi Bass.
Oh yeah.
So many of us have seen on social media, we've seen your affection for the wee little dogs.
Yeah.
Tell us about your Corgi Bass.
Actually, I'm going to show you two basses because they both involve animals. So this specific bass that Raul was talking about is my Kiesel multi-scale Vanquish 5-string. And so when I first joined Kiesel, this was one of my initial builds that I needed when I was specifically ordered for working with Angel Vivaldi, because I needed a 5-string for that set. And also my band Ladder Math uses 5 strings. They'd come up with this beautiful yellow top. And I had a really good friend. His name's John Contreras. He works at Nordstrand Audio and does Solution Audio and does all that stuff. And one day he posted online that he had gotten a laser edge cutter, like a really cool thing. And he made this really pretty American flag pickup cover for guitar, or I think it was a bass. I think guitar maybe. And it was pretty, and he painted it in red, white, and blue, whole glory. And I messaged him like, dude, like, I know you're going to think I'm a weirdo, but can you put a Corgi on the thing? And he goes like, what? And I go like, I'll pay you. Like, I'm not asking for free. Like, can you do it? And he goes like, well, let me see. So I sent him some JPEG art, like the little like clip art thing. And then luckily he had given them to me. And when Kiesel was making it for me, I was able to have it installed in there. And I think it's fun just because, like, I think, especially, like, it's kind of weird in today's climate. Everyone's so serious all the time, and people forget to have kind of a sense of humor. And in musicians, like, we forget to even have a sense of humor with ourselves. And the thing I like about this is that this bass growls insanely. Like, this is an extremely aggressive bass. And it's got a single coil jazz bass pickup, which is hot, like really wired hot. It's aggressive sounds I've ever heard. And a big old Music Man humbucker. And it's tuned to A flat with a drop tuner.
Nice.
This thing is metal AF. I just thought it'd be funny to contrast such an aggressive instrument with just a little tiny dog, and especially from like the pickup that's going to bring all the punch and like growl to it.
There you go.
Yeah, this one's amazing. Like my 6-string that I showed you, this one, which I highly recommend if you're going to spend the money, has a 7-piece neck, which is walnut, purple heart, and maple. Absolutely wonderful. It's a mahogany body with a flame maple top, an ebony fingerboard. And this one's toured really, really well. I've utilized this a lot on a ton of sessions. And it's also a fantastic pick style bass, as well as like tapping and slapping stuff that I utilize. But there's no like loss of clarity regardless of what technique I utilize. So like the first single that we're releasing with my Messis, I recorded with this.
Gotcha.
And absolutely stunning clarity. Works really well with that, but I thought that was funny. But because you did mention animals, the fact that I own animals. So I don't own dogs, but I love them. So again, bringing up Sarah Longfield, I'd wanted a really good fretless for years, and unfortunately, I grew up in South Florida. I didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I wanted Kiesel to make me one. But then I was like, I don't want just like a generic one. And so I decided to have my friend Sarah Longfield paint bass as a one-of-a-kind thing. And it's been awesome. So this is, anyone who follows me on social media knows my rabbit, Moon Pie.
Moon Pie!
Yeah, she's right back there taking a nap. But again, like what it was that I wanted to have a bunch of my friends collaborate, like, because I'm very fortunate. I have very talented friends. And so it was a collaboration between Sarah, who painted the bass, and I just told her, do whatever you want. But she has this very kind of cool, like, bright colors thing. And then my good friends Dave Cohen and Marianne Cohen, they own Equilibrium Guitars out of Somerville, Massachusetts. Oh, and Ryan here. And the three of them clear-coated the bass. This is alder body with a clear coat gloss. And then they did something really cool, which I'd always wanted, but I never had the money for those Padulas or anything like that, which are amazing basses. And put a clear coat on the fingerboard. So it has that really kind of nice high-end fretless thing.
Nice.
They fit it all up. Single coil jazz pickup, so it still has kind of that Jacko flair. And it's nice because it's right in between the sound of a Jacko fretless and a Padula a little bit, but none of that, like, the moi isn't too overt. And it's really nice now because basically, even with round wounds and me digging in, this clear coating is going to, they said, like, you'd have to play it for 50 years before we had to refinish the fingerboard. So, yeah. And then a Corgi in the bottom, and then my beloved Moon Pie is immortalized forever in Properdom. New Scale the Summit record, I plan on utilizing the space substantially. So, yeah, she's there, and hopefully I can tour with the space, and it's been awesome.
There you go. Very cool. Well, so much great stuff, Kilian. If anybody wants to know what you're doing, where's the best place for them to look to check?
The social media, the Facebook and Instagram of all my bigger bands, so Scale the Summit, Mimesis, Abiotic, Laddermouth. And then my personal Instagram is the one that I give the most announcements on. So Kilian Duarte Bass. So just my name, BASS, 1L. There I post regularly, give updates, do all those announcements. But that's a really easy way to find me. And then I also have a website, KilianDuarte.com. I don't update that as regularly, but my Instagram, like if you want to know what's going on, you know, performances, tour scheduling, things like that, that's going to be there. I'm going to be announcing a tour end of January and then flying a bunch to do a crap load of work this year, but I'm very happy.
Busy is good, my brother. Well, anyway, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us. Folks, you've seen him here coming to you via Skype on Bass Musician Magazine, Kilian Duarte.
Thanks for basing out with us here on bassmusicianmagazine.com.